Hey, it's Ailish, Blake, and JD from the Fan Morning Show.
Join us every morning at 8:30 for Wake and Rake, presented by Unibet Online Sportsbook and Casino. Crazy about the odds.
On Sportsnet 590, The Fan.
19 plus, play responsibly. Ontario law.
Sportsnet 590, The Fan.
Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. I'm your host, Wayne Liu, and I am joined by Sportsnet's Blake Murphy, producer.
Blake Murphy.
What's going on, Blake? I see you got the Peaky Blinders haircut.
Is that what's going on?
That's
I wore a hat in, and then I was very sweaty by the time I got here and took the hat off. There's
No, man.
I guess
Looking like
maybe.
Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, that's my brother. That's we're both equally handsome, equally talented.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just chose acting, and I chose talking about basketball and baseball.
Well, you're very. Look, listen. I would argue you are both very, very successful examples from the Peaky Blinders. Sorry, I've been binging a lot of Peaky Blinders.
Okay.
This is what happens when you go on a
I
trip.
haven't watched the newest season, so no spoilers. But I think I watched the first. There's 6.
Okay, there is 6
Okay,
seasons.
I think
This
I've
is
seen
the
the
last
first 5.
season. There's supposed to be a movie after all of this. So my only spoiler is that it will still leave some things unanswered.
Well,
But,
yeah, and I assume the spoiler there is he doesn't die, because you're not going to do a Peaky Blinders movie without him.
Yeah, or season 6 without him. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about Peaky Blinders. Although, honestly, if there's time at the very end, I will do more of it. But you kind of do have a Peaky Blinder haircut going on right now. Anyway, real reason to bring you in.
Because it's Tuesday and
because
Alex
it's
needed a
Tuesday.
day off.
Yeah, Alex has legitimate reasons to be away
Okay.
now. So I'm going to just give him the pass.
Is
But
he still on vacation?
no, he is
Oh.
back from vacation. But yeah, actually, I don't want to put Alex's business out there.
No,
He'll be back when he's back.
I just thought he was on vacation. That's all
Yeah.
I was,
No, he's back. He's
I
back.
mean, get in the guy's business.
Fair enough. Free agency is coming up, and I feel like I wanted to essentially tee up free agency once again. Now, people who obviously listen to the show will know that we have done this a few times already because the off season is long, and we have been doing daily podcasts. However, it's a good reminder to kind of do it again and to sort of look ahead, especially now that the draft is over, now that we see a little bit more depth at the center position. Obviously, there was a lot of talk of potentially the Raptors using some of their resources this offseason to reinforce center. Of course, they could still do that, but I do think they have less of a need to do so with the fact that they drafted Christian Koloko. For anyone who hasn't read it already, your free agency primer has been out for about a month now.
Yeah.
So, if you haven't read it already, or if you just want to go back and read it again, highly suggest you do so.
And that's the intention with that thing, is not to read all 3,000 words and digest all the charts and everything. It's bookmark it, come back to it when you need it. Like, if you look today, you would see, I haven't updated it, but under the key decisions tab, for example, Svi Mihailuk had until June 22nd to exercise his player option.
Which he did.
He did that.
Yeah.
The Raptors had until today to extend qualifying offers. Actually, they had until tomorrow to extend qualifying offers to their 3 restricted free agents. They did that. Justin Champagnie, David Johnson, and Nando DeColo.
Yeah, that's the other main reason I have you on, is because this is like, so how did this become a running meme for you?
Well, okay, so for anyone who doesn't know, the Raptors have continually issued a qualifying offer to Nando DeColo to maintain his restricted free agent rights. He hasn't played in the NBA since 2014.
Yep.
But the Raptors haven't been a team, they haven't needed the cap space. So because Nando DeColo didn't make much before, and because he's just an RFA with 2 years experience, that cap hold for doing that continues to be about $1.9 million. There's never been a time since then that the Raptors had to clear maximum cap, as much cap space as possible. So there's no cost to continuing to do this.
Okay.
A qualifying offer is an offer. Nando DeColo could sign that, and then the Raptors got to have him on that deal. At some point, he'll be too old to keep doing this, because you won't want 45-year-old Nando DeColo on a $1.9 million deal.
Hey, listen.
Or at some point, the Raptors will be trying to create maximum cap space, and they'll, they still have rights on Lucas Nogueira, on Jeremy Lin, a few things like that where you'd clear those rights as well. But DeColo's restricted free agency is basically if at any point he decides to come back to the NBA, the Raptors will have the right to match any offer sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And DeColo's 35. He's still very good, though. Like, he's still one of the best point guards not in the NBA.
Okay.
I don't think he's ever coming back.
No, I doubt it.
But it kind of became a meme in that, I mean, first of all, I would post the update every year.
Mm-hmm.
And then every year I'd get asked about it. So like every year I wrote about it. Like, here's what's up with Nando DeColo these days. And then a couple times Bobby Webster like specifically brought it up with me, like in a scrum or something like that, or in one of those pressers, and just kind of became, and he like brought it up on not this show, when I think Fan Morning Show or something like that.
One of the 5 different programs that you're on this lovely station.
Yeah. That's how you pull Nick Nurse, But yeah, anyway, that's just how it's gone. And like, eventually this will stop. The risk of him signing the offer sheet will be too strong. But for now, there's no cost to doing it.
Do you think there's any bit of thought in Bobby's mind that when he makes the decision to continue extending the offer, that you pop up in the back of his mind at all?
No.
You sure?
I don't think.
You don't think he like giggles a little bit to himself and he's like,
I don't think. Well, he might
By
giggle.
order of the Peaky Blinders.
Nando DeColo is still a restricted free agent by order of the Peaky Blinders. That was like 20 minutes ago. We were talking about Peaky Blinders.
Oh, sorry, man.
No,
I just wasn't expecting this haircut, but it looks good.
I
man.
think Bobby probably chuckles a little bit, and like the league office is like, Bobby, this used to be your job to handle all this stuff. You know that this is annoying for the person who is in your job now. So he probably chuckles for that. I don't think the general manager of the Toronto Raptors is headed into free agency thinking about Blake Murphy, though.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Well, look, listen. Before we actually get into other more pressing free agency news, I did want to offer you at least a platform to talk about Christian Koloko, because obviously you did such great coverage leading up to the draft. And, Christian's name was mentioned. It wasn't like implausible. That
Matt Cunningham from Raptors Republic was really big on him, and we did 2 or 3 minutes on him. I think he came up briefly with Sam Vecini. But it's one of those things where, the 33rd pick can't really have guests on and do 20 different options. It would be a pretty weird conversation format.
I think some people actually did do that, though.
Yeah, I mean,
this is the thing. The Raptors media space is like is incredibly deep. If you really wanted to have that conversation, I'm sure those were had publicly. But yeah, your thoughts on Christian Koloko on the 33rd pick. We've already talked about it in depth the last 2 episodes on the show, essentially. But listen, this is a daily show. So Blake, go ahead.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite picks in that range. I didn't go full disclosure because of my role on the morning show this year and then my transition to doing Jays Talk Plus. Now, this is probably the least deep I went on a draft since 2018. So like 2013, 2014, 2015, I was the draft lead at the Score. 2016 was my first year freelance, and the Raptors had 9 and 27, and I lived around the corner from the OVO Center. And then they only had OG and DeJuan Hernandez as picks over the next 3 years.
Right.
And they were competitive playoff teams. So, you kind of scale back a little bit. And then the last 2 years, the picks were important, and we had all the time in the world because of the pandemic. So I was like really, really deep on guys. So all that's just to say, I am not the number one voice you should be listening to on Koloko. He's a guy I watched. I tried to watch a lot of Arizona this year because of Ben Mathurin, and they were a team that I liked in the tournament. So I did get to see him a little bit. I thought he made sense as a Raptors he picked, not because of the Cameroon connection or anything, or GOA or anything like that, but because he's an older prospect who hasn't been playing quite as long, and the Raptors have interpreted that as this guy has developmental runway still. It's part of what they liked about Pascal. Yes, he's older for the class, but he hasn't played a ton yet. And that was something that they thought with a DeLon Wright, who he was a senior, but 2 of his years were junior college. Or Norm, who was a senior and 2 of his years were barely playing at UCLA. It's not just about age in terms of development. It's how much coaching have you gotten? How much coaching at a high level have you gotten? Now, Koloko played at elite prep school in 3 years at Arizona. So he's not quite the degree that we're talking about with someone like Siakam, maybe. But you would think a guy who got a late start to basketball coming from another sport, I would say 4 years he's been playing at on the same track as American prospects might be, like that one high end year of prep school and then 3 in college. He didn't really play a lot as a freshman, but still, you get the coaching and the experience and stuff.
There's also the COVID shutdown in the middle of that, which
affected
I guess
everyone.
Affected everyone, but especially for a younger player who was newer to the game at that point relative to some of his peers. Yeah.
So the developmental runway is one thing that stood out to me. Another thing the Raptors have kind of tried to do in that range, and Delano Banton's a good example, a guy who with developmental time might have some upside to unlock, but could in a pinch give you minutes right now. And I think Christian Koloko is far enough along defensively that if you leave him in a drop scheme, he could give you backup center minutes right now. Not at like an elite. It's not fair to expect any rookie center to be an elite defender, but he's got terrific length. He's got good timing around the rim. He has a big motor. And then the thing that is honestly most Raptors-y about him, I think, is you watch some of the synergy tape or whatever, and you got to make it's tough because how much time do you have and things like that, and you don't. It's hard to find them unless you're just going through a lot of clips because you can't just search like block attempts, right? And he does a lot of the Chris Boucher wild closeout, and then scramble back, which they'll be fine with. Like they're gonna let him.
Oh yeah,
they're gonna give him the freedom to be aggressive and try those things. It's just you got to get back and recover. I also think he just. Not that at the 33 pick, I'm never going to advocate find a guy who fits a role right now. Like it's rosters change too much, but he does have. In addition to that, he'll be their most natural option, I think, to play a drop coverage at center. He's also going to immediately be their best rim runner, like their best vertical threat in pick and roll. I don't know how much they'll use him for that, but they don't have that guy. Precious was starting to become that a little bit. Precious got to work on his screen setting. I think Koloko will probably have to do that too, add the strength through the lower half and stuff. But that's an offensive skill they don't have in abundance. So long way to go in terms of things like putting the ball on the floor. He's not a bad passer, but he's pretty turnover prone if he has to
it's like a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio.
And if he's not going, like if he's in the dunker spot and someone dumps it off to him, elite finisher. If he gets the ball in the post and has to dribble or do a counter move or something like that, you're leaning more turnover. And that's fine. He's a young center. That's what you'd expect. So that's how I feel about it. I think it very much makes sense with what the Raptors do well with prospects. And I'm not worried. I know some people were like, well, you need guard depth. It's a 33 pick. You're not getting anyone who immediately, like short of the Desmond Bane year, it's like no one is really stepping in immediately unless it's a huge surprise.
The Desmond Bane year.
Yeah, still want him.
That's tough. That's tough.
You think they'd flip Desmond Bane for Malachi Flynn if the Raptors want to redo that?
Oh, man. Why did they not take him? Is it only because he had a 6'6" wingspan? Is that it? They looked at a guy who is 6 foot.
They were like he looks like our logo with the tiny little arms.
They're like, yeah, no, he actually has T-Rex arms. We can't take him. And
I'm not sure. They liked Malachi Flynn.
I guess so.
Some people still like him.
Some people still like him. Some people say that Christian Koloko, being a rim runner, as you mentioned, who can, provide that vertical spacing and that threat of a lob, maybe helps, pick and roll guards. I mean, I don't know, man. I think Malachi's still got to work on other aspects. And then also, by the way, the Raptors really did shift a lot of the way they want to play basketball this past year. So, and it kind of shifted away from his style. Anyway,
I just think the thing with that is it's not necessarily like if they were going to redo how the second unit looks based around Malachi Flynn's pick and roll play, they would have done it by now.
Yeah.
But what I think is important to keep in mind is that when they talk so much about versatility, it's not just about every guy on the team can defend multiple positions. Diversity of skill is a thing as well.
Sure. Yeah.
And if you get an opponent where they have trouble defending a vertical threat like that, and the Raptors were one of those teams that had trouble, like Robert Williams looked like an MVP against the Raptors a lot of the time.
Yeah, fair enough.
Some teams aren't going to have the defense for that, and it's maybe there. And I'm not talking 20 points as a starter, but you can get, Bebe's in the CEBL now.
Yep.
He he feasted off those lobs when he was willing to dunk it instead of kicking it out to the corner while he's in ollie hoop.
Yeah. No, listen, I was always a big fan of Bebe. Happy for Bebe.
Yeah.
You know, I know he's gone through some stuff as well.
Mhm.
So I'm especially happy for him just on that level. But, you know, look, listen, talking about Bebe, I feel like Bebe was like the original version of what the Raptors have eventually turned into Chris Boucher. And Chris Boucher, by the way, is way better than Bebe.
Yes.
Right? It's not close. What I'm trying to say is that energy big, was third string center for a while, had really good numbers on like a per minute basis, but wasn't playing a lot, had some, you know, I think probably just like flaws and inexperience and all that kind of stuff. But I think Chris is like taking it to a whole nother level. And we've already had a conversation about whether the Raptors want to bring him back. I think it's very clear.
Yeah.
We probably even guessed that there's some pretty strong mutual interest, I would say. However, I don't think Chris Boucher is like the hidden secret anymore. Maybe it was like a couple years ago, maybe. But just in the last like week alone, we've seen John Hollinger put out a free agent ranking. I think he had Chris as the 8th best free agent on the market.
Yeah, number 2 center.
Number 2 center, he valued it at $19.8 million. So $20 million, which, I mean, look, listen, that's not going to happen. I mean,
And if it
unless
is-
John Hollinger gets back into the league.
And if it is, Chris Boucher is no longer a Toronto Raptor.
Yes, absolutely. If it even is close to $20 million, he's no longer. But then you had Zach Cram at The Ringer, also wrote a whole entire story actually just about Chris. The story's name was The Most Interesting Free Agent on the NBA's free agent market. And, you know, the whole story is about Chris, and he mentions how he has a really high block rate, has a really high offensive rebounding rate, has a honestly not a guy who's a prolific three-point shooter, as we know, but for guys who have a high block rate and a high offensive rebounding rate, there are very few players who also then take threes.
Yeah,
And
well, if
obviously-
you're offensive rebounding, you're closer to the rim, right? So
Yeah. So,
I understand that, and I do think that that's a good way to filter for sort of,
Mhm.
I don't know, 3 and rim protection guys, but we're at a pretty large sample of Chris Boucher not being a good 3-point shooter.
all right, bro. Just make sure you said that. All right, listen.
Look, he had a really good 2020,
Listen,
2021.
I know Chris is a dedicated listener to the show, so
But
you know,
look,
that's
it's
Blake
just
Murphy
if
who
you
said
were
that.
if you were putting him if you were expecting that from him as like a regular skill rather than just a show me thing or an occasional thing, like he shot 33.5%,
Yeah, no, that's fair.
and
no,
and he
I'm
didn't
just,
like I think he shot sub 30 in the G League.
Well, I mean,
I'm just saying the Nets are the same.
the approach was shoot first, second, and third in
Right.
the G League. Yeah.
And I think everyone knows over the years I've been very fond of Chris and thought he was going to become a good NBA rotation player.
Which he has, absolutely.
Yeah, it just that particular skill, it's like a little. It just hasn't come along,
Yeah,
to,
yeah, no,
like
that's
to
fair,
to the degree that you'd expect. And to his credit, he shot less of them this year because it
Mhm.
wasn't dropping
Yep.
as much.
Yep. And he talked about it as well. Okay, so it got me to thinking, like, what do you think would be the floor for Chris's free agent market? Right, 'cause
Mid level.
So mid-level being like 10 million.
Yeah, 10 and change.
Yeah.
Now you'll get into what is how many years are you going to guarantee?
Sure. Yeah.
Is a swing piece there. So that's an interesting one because I don't know. Like he's older for a prospect. And he's actually another great example of what I was talking about earlier with the guys who are older than their draft age but
Right.
don't have as much basketball development underneath them. Like Chris is 29 and he's had 5 NBA seasons, but like when you look at his college and his high school and his injuries and stuff, like I'm not saying he's a prospect still, but he's a young 29 as far as could you get a little more out of this guy?
I would also like to think I'm a young 29, by the way.
Are you only 29 still?
I'm still only 29, Blake.
My baby boy.
I know. Anyway, so yeah, okay. So the floor, I agree with you, is mid-level. The Raptors obviously had the ability to offer more than that, holding his full bird rights. How much more of that do you think the Raptors should comfortably be able to offer without impacting some of the other financial decisions they want to make?
So I think they have about 30 that they can spend and be like comfortably beneath the tax.
30 to spend between Chris, between Thad, and the mid-level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And any biannual or anything like that.
Yeah, okay.
And it's more than that, but generally you would like to leave, like if they were like, okay, this is our roster, it's set, you could go more than that. It's just, you gotta, in a non-contention year or even a year, you can just you can avoid it, they're going to avoid the luxury tax. And entering the season with a little wiggle room there makes trades a little easier under the tax and stuff like that. So I have $30 million in my head as Boucher, Young, mid-level. If you can get those three things for $30 million, you're pretty happy with your offseason.
Right.
Given that, I know some people will be like, well, they didn't get a star or whatever. There's no path to maximum cap space for the Raptors. There's no path to getting in the mix for an Ayton or a Miles Bridges without a sign and trade. So $30 million, Boucher, Thad, mid-level. I would think that this is the hardest part of this for me, is purely, like, if you were treating this coldly as like, we got to maximize every dollar, we don't care about the personal relationships, we don't care about the rest of the market moving on while we wait. The move would be to wait and see if someone offers Chris Boucher the mid-level.
Yeah.
Because most teams can't go over that.
Yeah.
And then if you got to go 12-5 because he's a little upset that, you know, you made him wait it out or whatever, like I'd be comfortable if the term is short. $12 million for Chris Boucher doesn't seem crazy to me.
No, not at all. That's like average player money nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like 2 years, $25 million or something like that. It's when you get into the 4-year mid-level territory that I'd be like, I know less
That's
about
tough,
that. Like, you're paying him into 33, and
But,
he's.
I mean, for his perspective, though, as you mentioned, that's where the age thing, like, if you're 29, right, and you sign a 2-year deal, there's a very, very good chance you're going to sign for another, especially if he keeps his production up, another longer-term deal at that point, at 31. Whereas if you sign a 4-year deal, you get to, like, 33, I feel like that's starting to be the point where players start to fall off a little bit, especially for guys like Chris who need to be, you know, as active, as athletic.
And there aren't a lot of guys like him to see, like, oh, what's the precedent for this player type to,
There's
like, in
nobody
terms of
like
how
him,
they age.
actually.
Yeah.
There really isn't anyone like Chris. Yeah.
Yeah. This is, that's at, like, if I'm his agent, that's at the same time a really good thing and a really bad thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Fair.
well, no one does what he does like he does it. And that's great. That makes him valuable. And then if you're the team side, you're like, yeah, but how do we know if this still works at 33? If he slows down, like if Chris Boucher slows down like 15%.
No, that's a real issue, man.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it is like standing in the corner and crashing in the weak side, you know, for crashing the glass. You know, you're obviously going to need your peak athleticism to be able to do that successfully at a high level. A lot of his production is catching lobs and stuff like that, which you obviously need to do at a high level. A lot of it is running the fast break. Like, how many times this season did we see Scotty Barnes throw a no look / look away pass to Chris Boucher in transition? Like, that was like a go-to play. It requires your big to be able to get down the floor that quickly. And also on the other end, defensively, it's like contesting shots, flying around, closing out on threes, all that stuff. It's like you need your peak athleticism to do that, right? So, I mean, I don't know.
So I'm comfortable with something like 225.
That's good with me.
If you go beyond 2 years, that's when we start to get into, I think you would like partial guarantees or a team option somewhere or something like that, just to kind of protect your downside.
Fair enough. Fair enough. What was like 3 in the third year is partial guaranteed or player option? You good with that?
Not player option.
Oh, team option, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Raptors got to get away from all these player options.
Yeah, you're right.
Svi?
Yo, come on, be happy for Svi, man. Congrats. Svi's back on the team.
Yeah,
guys.
great that
$2 million guaranteed this year.
Good for him.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know. I'm very pro player in negotiations. Svi Mykhailiuk and Stanley Johnson having player options. We've gone too far.
All right. No, fair enough. Fair enough. All right. The other free agent that's of major interest is Thad Young, who the Raptors acquired last year at the trade deadline, swapping out Goran Dragic, the trader, into Thad Young, plus a downgrade in picks, which honestly turned out pretty well because Koloko, I would have been pretty happy if the Raptors took Koloko 20th, for example.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at who kind of went in that range. The other thing too is like you can't discount the fact that, say there was someone in the top 20 they really liked, it's a lot easier to get up. Like, say they were enamored with AJ Griffin or Tari Eason or something like that. Those guys went outside the lottery. It's a lot harder to get there with 33 than it is with 20.
Okay, no, fair enough. Fair enough.
So, but yeah, there's not, like, I'm not really melting down that they didn't get Walker Kessler.
You know, a lot of people were melting down when the first round pick was moved. I mean, look, listen, it wasn't like a home run deal in terms of like value, but at the same time, I think a lot of it probably depends on whether or not you're able to retain Thad.
The other thing too is like, because they traded the pick to San Antonio, like Malachi Branham is going to be good because he's a Spurs prospect now. So it'll look, but like, it's one of those things where like, okay, does prospect X look better? Like, does Scotty look as good as Scotty looked if he goes to the Magic? Does Jalen Suggs look better if he goes to the Raptors? Does that 4 or 5 decision look different?
That's fair.
But I would say, like, the only guy that went in between those picks that I'm like, I would really have liked the opportunity to take at 20 is Blake Wesley.
Okay.
I think he slid too far at 25. Another guy who went to the Spurs.
Yep.
I want all the Spurs picks back. I mean, maybe Andrew Nembhard, but it's great for him that he got to a place that he's going to play minutes and play with a bunch of other Canadians. So
yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. That's really Team Canada part 2 over there. Okay, so with Thad Young though, this is part of the evaluation of deals, whether or not you're able to retain him at a decent number. To me, I think the floor for him is probably the taxpayer mid-level.
Yeah.
Which is about 6.
Yeah.
Because I could see, like, for example, like I just kind of want to go through this real quick exercise with you of these contenders who could use that in a rotation. Like I'm talking about in a playoff series, he could be one of their top 8 players. Okay. Could he be in the rotation for the Suns?
Yeah.
Mavericks?
Yeah.
Clippers?
Nope.
That's a little harder. They have a lot of depth. Celtics?
Yeah. Yes, but they've got some decisions to make that maybe no.
Okay.
Like it's a bit of a weird fit to keep him and Grant Williams both in the mix.
Yes. And I think all things considered, you take Grant.
Yeah.
Miami?
Yeah. They ran out of guys
They
quick in the
definitely could use
playoffs there.
them,
Yeah. They got to get someone who can play at both ends of the floor. Although once they get KD, who knows?
Oh, God. Yeah, I really wouldn't put it past Pat Riley, a.k.a. Luca Changretti. Sorry, I've been watching a lot of Peaky Blinders. Okay, the 76ers?
Yeah.
The Bucks?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
right?
ran out of guys in the playoffs too. I mean, maybe a little less so if Middleton's healthy, but
Sure.
you
but
can't do the Pat Connaughton thing at scale in the playoffs.
Yeah, and then the Warriors.
Yes, but maybe not next year.
Yeah,
If you get any growth wise out of Moody and Kuminga.
Well, you're already looking at 5 teams in just that list alone of playoff contenders who could probably use them. And obviously we know that.
But there are other guys you could use the taxpayer mid-level on too.
Yeah, which, by the way, we're going to have this conversation in the second half because we're going to take a break after this. But a lot of the mid-level targets, not that sexy. This is I at least to me, like when I was thinking about this, because obviously the other portion, as you mentioned, Raptors at $30 million, you split it between Chris, Thad, and the mid-level. I'm like, I don't even know, man. A lot of these guys, I'm like, I guess it's cool if they use a whole mid-level on them, but you know, these guys aren't like knock your socks off kind of players. But yeah, just thinking about Thad though, real quick. Floor is probably $6 million. Raptors, again, you could take the same approach with Chris. You offer him slightly more, and then you have him sort of more comfortably. I think, you know, he obviously. I don't know. Do you think there is a mutual interest, or do you think he's like sold on this whole situation?
Yeah,
Like,
I think there's
is
a
there
mutual
intel on
interest.
this?
I don't think it's a lock.
Yeah, of
But
course.
like the Raptors got him because they've liked him forever. And they came out and said getting his bird rights is a part of this deal. The hard part isn't do you like Thad and is he worth $6 million? It's are you playing 5 power forwards full time next year?
And the answer is yes.
Yeah, it was already hard to find Thad minutes when everyone was healthy this past year.
Yeah.
And those guys are going to want you're going to want to
You
play
didn't like
Precious
Thad
more.
at 3?
I like Thad wherever.
No, because like, you know, Thad, Chris Boucher, and then Precious Achua was like a very, very prominently used bench combination. And we'll see. Maybe Precious makes his way in the starting 5. I think he's fairly close, honestly. But yeah, like
It's just
the Raptors are weird enough of a team to actually do that and commit to it again.
Yeah.
With 2 free agents who are essentially competing for the same spots.
Yep.
Yep.
And I just think that there's definitely a walkaway point where like we didn't even mention Kem Birch too, right? And that's you don't need to chase a sunk cost or anything like that if you don't think Kem's going to bounce back. But it is another guy that if you lost Thad, say you'd be like, well, you could rely on that. And
Sure.
I'm not saying that I'm not advocating for that. We got to see Kem back on the floor and healthy and see how that knee surgery helped him fix things up. But it's a lot of like if you imagine the roster as a scale, like all the money is already tilted this way, away to the kind of 4 or 5 positions, and it's just Fred up here dangling.
Oh, that's Gary up there.
And then like you're gonna put Thad and Boucher even more, and you had Koloko. I'm not saying you need 3 guys at each position on the depth chart, but like absolutely with the mid-level. I know we're gonna talk mid-level after the break. Like look at what we just went through. Mid-level's got to be looking at if there isn't like an obvious this guy became undervalued let's try to rehab it thing. It's got to be perimeter help.
Okay. I agree with you. However,
especially if you retain Boucher and Thad.
yes. However, as we will go through this exercise after this break, not that much like premium guard or perimeter help
There's not premium anything.
in the mid-level. Yeah, no, it's tough. Mid-level is really like shopping on winners. Like sometimes you'll find a deal, and there's a good chance you'll find a deal. But, you might also walk out with the full winner's outfit. Anyway, we're going to take a break right here. I'm your host, Wayne Wu. You've been listening to the Raptors Show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. All right, welcome back to the Raptors Show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Wim Lou. Continue to be joined by Sportsnet's Blake Murphy. As we discussed prior to the break, we are going to look at mid-level exception targets for the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors have, if they choose to use the full mid-level, just over $10 million to offer to a free agent. Now, before we actually have this conversation, I wanted to just look at the roster as a whole. So right now there are 9 guaranteed contracts on the books for next season. Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Precious Achiuwa, Kem Birch, Svi Mihalik, and Malachi Flynn. Most likely, Delano Banton, who is signed to a partially guaranteed contract, will remain on the roster next year. So I'm just going to count him. That's 10. Christian Koloko, when he signs his contract, will be 11. Then, of course, if the Raptors do successfully re-sign Chris Boucher and Thad Young, which they do intend to do, that will bring them up to 13 players. You have one restricted free agent in Justin Champagnie, who I think the Raptors should be re-signing. I think he's worth taking more time to look at with him with, and just I like the guy. And then you also have one two-way spot accounted for with Ron Harper Jr., which leaves you with one roster spot and then one two-way spot. Now, of course, that roster spot could very easily just be the mid-level exception player, and the Raptors have the financial flexibility to do so. But the reason I did this exercise is like the roster is actually like pretty set.
It is.
Yeah.
And I think if you're using the mid-level, it's, first of all, it's probably leaning toward perimeter-oriented guys just for a little, again, versatility of lineup, depth behind Fred VanVleet maybe. But yeah, I think the other thing to consider, and you're certainly not signing someone with this in mind, but look at all the trade scenarios people kick around. Mm-hmm. Having salaries in that tier is helpful.
Oh yeah,
it's almost like obviously it costs $10 million to do that. That's a real thing. But it is a bit of a lost opportunity to not have anything in that space and then have a scenario again where, you could trade Gary Trent or you can't trade anyone. It's like that one year where every trade option at the deadline had to be Patrick Patterson and picks because he was the only guy that didn't make the max or the minimum, basically, is stars and scrubs style. So
the original Grant Williams. No, I'm kidding. I do think
you lean toward trying to use it. You're not feeling a crazy pressure about it. If you end up chopping off a chunk of it to, so for anyone who doesn't know, Christian Koloko as a second round pick can sign kind of whatever deal, but it's capped at 2 years unless they use part of an exception to give him a third year or a fourth year. It's the same with anyone. If you want to go over 2 years at the minimum, you need to use an exception. If you want to go over the minimum, you got to use an exception. So that's something to keep in mind as well. The Raptors have chopped it up between guys in the past. I don't think they're going to do that this year necessarily. Like I could see them taking off a piece for Koloko, but in general, you're not going to chop up the mid-level around a couple players if 14 roster spots are already spoken for. And you have to figure like at the very back end of that roster, like we're headed for 4 guys on Exhibit 10s in camp and the winner gets the two-way spot kind of thing.
Yeah, that sounds likely.
Yeah.
And it could be someone on the roster. It could be Armani Brooks, for example,
Could be Armani Brooks, could be David Johnson, could be some of the undrafted guys that'll end up at Summer League with them.
Yeah. There you go. We'll have time to talk about that. Well, that's more nerdy stuff, but the meaty stuff right now. Mid-level exception targets. Blake, I asked you to prepare 3. I prepared a few more as well, just in case we perfectly overlap. But give me your first mid-level target.
Well, they're all power forwards, so I'm going to pivot away from that.
All you said was you needed more guards on the team.
I know, but the only guys I like are power forwards. I'm completely Raptors pilled now, where if you're not 6'9", I don't want it. No, so one of the first names, like in a vacuum, if I were any team, one of the names that I would take a bounce back flyer on, assuming the medicals are okay, is TJ Warren.
Yeah.
But for the Raptors, in a similar way, similar situation, I kind of wonder if Ricky Rubio would be gettable on the mid-level.
Okay. I mean, why wouldn't he be gettable on the mid-level?
Well, because he was making more than that before, and he was very important to that Cleveland team.
He was
very
very important, but like,
and I know he tore his ACL in December. He'll be back at some point this year. You could probably go less than the mid-level and get him still. Like you might be able to biannual him on a rehab deal. But if you're worried about point guard depth, and I know he doesn't resolve that immediately if he's not healthy right away, it's real slim pickings.
It's super slim. It's super slim. I did not expect you to go the Ricky Rubio option.
You need another point guard somewhere. I don't.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
Like, I
He's
don't
got good
think
size
you can,
and length. Obviously, a really good passer.
Yeah, and good defender.
Yeah,
We'll see how the ACL holds up, like in terms of his lateral quickness and stuff. Smart guy, well liked guy. I also, there just aren't a lot of point guards, and I don't want to belabor the point because no, traditional positions don't matter that much, and the Raptors are obviously committed to playing different lineups and stuff like that. But Fred VanVleet hasn't stayed healthy through a whole season, was leading the league in minutes on and off last year. Like, you need someone else that can handle the ball there. And I don't think DeLon Wright is coming back through the door, given how he left.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I don't think Tyus Jones is going to be in reach with the mid-level.
He's a little too good. You should get paid more than mid-level.
So then
His
you're
agent should
getting
get him a better deal.
Then you're getting down into like Raul Neto territory.
I mean, Gary Harris.
He's not a point guard though, really.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess the argument is, okay, so your backup point guard could just be Scotty. Like, Scotty can just run a lot of the plays for you. You have Thad, who can like not be a point guard, but at least you can give him the ball, make some good passes, especially if Chris Boucher's cutting at some point, right? You bring those guys back. Maybe you get them both in a room, and you're like, listen, we want both of you guys back. You guys can split this $20 million between you guys. But yeah, like, you have other Pascal, obviously, like, you have other point guard options, and we also saw at the end of the season where Fred was out. Like, not that those games were like great to watch, because a lot of the times the Raptors will be like, oh, Raptors have 6 threes made through 3 quarters, but like, they were able to succeed at least in spots without Fred or without any traditional point guard. Now, having said that, though, I think you still need to add more shooting in general. So maybe the shooting is probably the more pressing need for me.
then Rubio's not the play then. Well, let me throw another point guard name at you.
Go ahead.
That is, this wouldn't be for the mid-level. This would be a much lower tier.
That's fine with me, yeah.
But Javon Carter is basically like a knockoff brand Fred VanVleet. Undersized.
How knockoff are we talking about?
Pretty
man?
knockoff.
This is the most knockoff.
We're talking about below the mid-level exception, but he's a good off-ball shooter. He's a good off-ball mover. He can defend pretty well for an undersized guy. Like,
that's true. He's scrappy.
Yeah. So I don't know, a guy who can be he's never going to lead a unit, but the way you just laid it out is you would want your emergency guard to be a guy who's comfortable just spotting up.
Okay.
So that's not part of the mid-level discussion, but I do think like the point guard list goes from guys you probably can't afford with the mid-level and immediately to guys at the minimum or a shade above the minimum.
Yeah.
Gets ugly quick.
I feel like Javon is like shade above the minimum.
He is. He's in maybe biannual tier or something like that.
Him, but.
And he's going to land on a good team because he's the type of guy who he's useless to a bad team.
Sure, fair enough. What about shooters who come very cheap because they play very limited defense, like a Bryn Forbes?
Sweet? Oh.
I said shooters.
Yeah, Bryn Forbes.
No, come on, man. Nick's not playing Bryn Forbes.
Yeah, I mean, he's shot 41% on over 4 threes a game for his career.
I know. That's why he's in the NBA.
He has no other skills. But
none. No offense. I doubt he's listening. Wow, we're gonna get the Javon Carter, Bryn Forbes heat after this one. But
is Bryn Forbes one of your picks? Or are you just throwing it out there?
I'm just throwing that out there. Yeah.
Bryn Forbes at the minimum to try to see if you can do a better SV. Sure, but who you got for mid-level?
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, who's your third target? Because
I've only given you one.
Oh, okay. I thought those.
It was Rubio. No, we just talked
Rubio.
around the point guards and talked about how bad they all are.
All right, fair enough. Listen, last time we had a Forbes on the roster led to the greatest Raptor of all time. Gary Forbes.
Lowry, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway,
I got you.
Yeah. All right. Next. Give me another name. We're just brainstorming here.
Okay.
It's like very early, even though the free agency starts on Thursday.
This is one that I don't think he gets the full mid-level. I think he could get in the 7 million range.
I love when you open with, I don't think this guy's going to get the full mid-level because he's probably not that good if you say that. But go ahead.
Cody Martin from Charlotte.
I'm okay with that. Okay with that.
He's pretty typical 3-and-D guy. Like what he shoot 38% last year.
Scrappy,
not a ton of volume, but that was more about how Charlotte played and stuff like that. He's pretty good defensively. He's awesome as a transition guy. So he kind of fits what the Raptors in terms of guys who would make sense on a Raptors second unit. a guy who can defend, knock down the odd three, and runs like hell in transition makes sense to me. Again, he's maybe like a $6-7 million a year guy, but
That's fine with me.
as
though.
far as guards, like off guards, 2-3 kind of guys, he's him or his brother. I don't know.
Well, his brother's got to apologize to Scotty first
Yeah.
and the Raptor fan base because
Yeah.
that foul in transition was not ideal.
No.
Okay, so we are saying yes. By we I mean I. I'm just here to say yes or no apparently. Okay, so I'm saying yes to Cody Martin at less than the mid level. I like him. I think he fits age wise. All the things that you described there work for me. I'm saying no to Ricky Rubio because we have enough guys who shoot 33% from three. Is there a third
and
option?
are injured.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. But yeah, well, who's your third option there?
That's a tough one. Like I'm going to assume we're out of the. I mean, Cody Martin's RFA too, but I kind of don't count Charlotte as RFA because they don't like any of their good players. They
Fair
let
enough,
Malik
yeah.
Monk go for free. You could get PJ Washington for like nothing right now,
By the way,
probably.
what happened with their coaching thing? So they took forever to figure out who they're going to hire as coach. Ultimately decide we're going to go with Kenny Atkinson. It's like, okay, fine, yeah. Then the Warriors are like, nah, we need him. So he's like, yeah, I'm not coming. And then ultimately they go back to Steve Clifford. Like, my God. Come on, man. After 2 months, you've gone back to your ex? Actually, you know what? That is, maybe I am sympathetic to some degree, but not that I phrased it like that, but still, that's tough. Yeah.
I mean, okay, for another one, I hate this one because he's a guy I wanted as like, I didn't think you'd get him for the minimum last year, but he was one of my mid-level targets last year.
Yes.
And the idea was buy him low. And there were a lot of component skills pointing toward this guy's ready to break out. This guy's ready to play a bigger role. And now you got to pay him for that breakout. But Malik Monk still fits.
Oh, yeah. The only thing is, like, I feel like, absolutely, by the way, this is absolutely yes for me. He averaged 14 points per game last year, shot 47% from the field, 40% from three, shot 6 threes a game, and he still shot 40% from three. Now, it doesn't do much else, really. Not a defender. I guess a slight playmaker, but really he's a playmaker in the sense that he can score, so people maybe double him sometimes and he can swing the ball. But, like, yes, absolutely. The only thing is, like, I feel like so many teams want him, and also Malik Monk himself has said that he really wants to take a discount to rejoin the Lakers. He just loves being a Laker. You know, there's some guys who are like that.
I guess.
You know, don't guys take discounts to, like, go to the Yankees or something? Or
No, the
Real
Yankees are the
Madrid
team
or-
with infinite money.
yeah, fair enough. I guess this doesn't really fully apply in baseball.
Yeah.
But okay,
the other
so
thing too is I don't know. Malik Monk's not clutch, so I was thinking maybe there's here's something under the table kind of thing. But
the Raptors are low key becoming a heavy clutch client.
Trent, OG, and Koloko, is that it?
And Nick.
Still, this is not about Nick Nurse.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
go
just
ahead.
about the industry in general.
Yeah.
Agencies being able to represent GMs, coaches, and players
Yeah.
is like it's rife with conflicts of interest.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Although if it was a rule against it, Clutch would just like spin off a second thing, and it would still work the same. It would just be under another name, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. Crunch time.
Yeah, or coach with a K.
Anyway, so yeah.
Okay, so who are yours?
Okay, so here's some of mine. These two I'm going to group under the idea that the Clippers have taken enough players from the Raptors. It's time to fire back. All right. So Nick Batum,
Okay.
someone who I definitely wanted on the Raptors a while ago, which in retrospect, but people will remember this. 2016, that was the year that DeMar was up as a free agent, and the Raptors could somehow carve out max cap space or something like that. And I think Batum was also a major free agent. Now, of course, DeMar was absolutely the right choice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the
right
argument
choice.
wasn't just which guy. It was DeMar at the max or Batum around 20 million.
Yeah, exactly. No,
And DeMar didn't get the full max, but he got close enough.
yeah. And also, I guess this fits to the theme. Apparently, we're just trying to rebuild the Charlotte Hornets, but in Toronto. Maybe we get Steve Clifford next.
Look,
Nick Batum,
every
though.
baseball team just keeps taking guys that failed with the Baltimore Orioles and turning them into Cy Young caliber guys. So
Yeah.
there's something to be said for you were in a bad developmental environment. I mean, Batum was a vet there, so that doesn't count. But
Oh, he was the bad environment.
Yeah.
Developmental environment, maybe. In any case, though, yeah. So it's just I think Charlotte should just stick away from signing French players at a certain point. I think they're 0 for 2. But yeah, Nick Batum, he's 33 this year, which is older than pretty much everyone on the Raptors outside of Thad if he comes back. He has a $3.3 million player option, and the deadline to pick it up is tomorrow.
He declined it.
He already declined it?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So he is a free agent, unrestricted. You know, obviously he's in a phase where he probably wants to contend. The Clippers probably want to retain him.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the Clippers have tons of money, you know, so I wouldn't be that surprised if he did return to the Clippers. But the Raptors can offer, I think the full mid-level is probably more than what he would get paid by the Clippers. And yeah, I think he fits a lot with what the Raptors need. Shot the three really well, 4.6 3-point attempts per game in 24 minutes per game last season. Shot it efficiently. He's always been a pretty decent three-point shooter, but also just an all-around player, two-way wing. You know, play makes, probably is comfortable coming off the bench. Like,
absolutely be comfortable coming off the bench. He really, I mean, the playmaking element of it, he really fits what they like to do on offense.
Yep.
And I mean, he had a throwback year defensively. He wasn't,
he was good.
He wasn't peak Batum, but he was really solid. So
the only thing with him is like he played defensively more the bigger positions, 4 and 5 sometimes.
Right.
5 is
but
like outrageous.
That's one of the benefits of having 4 or 5 guys who can guard twos. If you need to do that, you can do that.
Okay, interesting.
So,
interesting.
I'd be okay with that one. I don't know about full mid level.
That's fine, and it's not going to be long term. It'll be like 2 years.
Yeah, and my only hesitation with this one, and it's not my hesitation, is just the Raptors using that money on a 33-year-old. I mean, I threw out Rubio, so what do I know?
Yeah,
But
no, fair enough.
who else you got?
Amir Coffey, not the full mid level, because you can probably get him a little bit less. 25 years old, came his way up as a two-way player, really developed himself. Obviously, the Clippers have had tons of injuries, especially on the wing, so he's gotten more of a chance to play. He's also a guy who shoots the three well enough. Definitely not a good 3-point or a great 3-point shooter, but capable. I think he shot 38% last year. You know, could score a little bit, come off the bench for you. Probably decent defensively.
Yeah, I mean he's fine. He's like, again, not nowhere close to the full mid level for me. I would worry just a tiny bit about the shooting, because he was a really poor shooter in the G League.
Yep.
And I know it's not like the G League doesn't mean everything, but you get bigger samples because a guy like Amir Coffey could take 10 threes a game down there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You work him out. You see what he does with the pill.
The Nick Nurse pill.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But
By the
yeah,
way,
he's fine. I mean, Amir Coffey is like, we're bordering into he's just a guy territory.
Yeah.
Like he's 25 now, as well. But yeah, he's like a rotation caliber player.
Again, people have to understand when we're talking about shopping in the mid-level, where the mid-level is winners. Like it's a basketball winners, like NBA winners. You go in there, you know, there's certain items you can get. Other items you're like, what am I doing?
And there are like 20 teams shopping in that exact aisle.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like you're trying to elbow the guy out of the way. Hey,
for a pair of pants.
I think you're more of I think you're more of a 38. Let me get these 36s. Get out of here. Last one.
That last one. You know, honestly, I'm just gonna get a quick yes or no from you. Lonnie Walker.
Yeah.
RFA?
Yeah.
He's clutch too.
Yeah, and not RFA. They're not gonna issue him the qualifying offer.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Oh well, listen, there you go. Because they have a ton of guards that the Spurs do. Kyle Anderson, former Spur.
Yeah, he's gonna get more in the mid level though, I think.
Okay. DeLon Wright. We were kind of.
I don't think he's coming back.
Bruce Brown. I've seen a lot of people interested in Bruce Brown.
The Raptors are trying to build infinite Bruce's Brown.
They're trying to build big Bruce Brown, not like 6'4" Bruce Brown. Like, okay, Bruce Brown looks really good right now with the Nets because they have no hustle guys and no wing guys. So it's like
I don't think he's a Raptors fit.
No, I don't think so either. I just don't know why people were really into Bruce Brown like that. And the last one, Thomas Bryant. Same agent as Pascal. I'm
less eager about a center now that Precious has developed the way he has. You have Kem Birch under contract. You've got Koloko. Sure, if he comes cheap and it works out, awesome. But I like him as a player. I just don't know where his minutes come that they're not at the expense of, say, a Precious Achiuwa.
Fair enough. All right, well, that wraps it up for us today. I'm your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Make sure you find The Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review our show. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel, airing live on Sportsnet 360 Monday to Friday between 2 and 3 p.m. Thanks again to Blake Murphy, our board producer, Derek Brendale, and Jennifer Rolnick for helping us with the YouTube stream. I'll be back tomorrow.